Hello and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta.
And I'm Connie, and we are two crazy cousins because our, guest, I can't even think today. Desire Waldroup is with us here, and she liked that, so I'm throwing it in there again.
Well, since we're laughing and talking about it, and obviously since this is probably one of the ways you stay positive, since your diagnosis and all the surgeries and all the hospital stays, how do you stay so positive?
Easy. Very, very easy. I could be dead right now. It's so simple. Like, I could be literally in a vase on Cody's nightstand next to R2-D2. Like, I very much keep myself in check. I know we were like laughing and I just took it to like super serious, but that's the end of the day. Like, my late sister, Sarah, she had asked me when the first conversation I had with her after I had my ostomy bag. My sister had worked in hospice care, so she worked with a lot of elderly patients that had ostomy bags and colostomy bags. And she was like, all of them are so miserable. They all just hate their lives. How are you so happy and positive? I'm just like, dude, I'm alive. I'm alive. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because I think we are so conditioned to a certain way of thinking that when something happens, we have to react a certain way. And I will challenge myself. You know what I mean? Like, I am I love to have a sense of humor. I love to goof around. And so that's what keeps me very, easy. And it makes it easier for other people too. Like when I make jokes, it makes more other people comfortable about it. They're like, okay, she has these crazy serious problems. Her life must be sad. No, it's not. It's not that sad. It is sad some days, but we can make the most of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And your video still pops up on my Facebook every year, which I love, of you like doing the robot. Like, what was it, like 2 days after your surgery?
Nice.
You and me, robot.
It was a good robot.
Yeah. It's so funny. We have neighbors that are probably like 4 houses down. If I turn the camera, I could probably show you their house. So after my surgeries, you're like on limited duty, right? You can't lift over 5 pounds, 10 pounds. You need to be in bed. Well, when Cody would go back to work, I love manual labor. And so I know I'm crazy. So like, I would like sneak out of the house and go out into the front yard and like dig and sift through rocks and like fix irrigation lines and plant stuff. And Cody would have our neighbors keeping tabs on me. And I didn't know that. And so like, I would play this like cat and mouse game with them. Like I would hear them come out their front door and I'd run back inside. And I just found out, this was like 3 years ago. I just found out I was in their house and I looked out their front door. I'm like, they can see me, everything I was doing in the front yard just from their front window. And then like, yep, we watched you the whole time. And we were texting Cody the whole time. I was like,
dang it, I thought I was being crafty.
I thought I was being so smooth. I thought I was just like, oh, what time is it? Gotta go inside. Conveniently when they would walk up to the house. You know what I mean? That was probably one of the hardest things, was to sit still through everything. And even now, because my body will tell me, no, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like with the mouths, with the compressed artery, if I lifted something over 10 pounds, I could feel my body like tightening. Like, nope, put it down. So it's hard. It's so hard to like not do things like that, especially when I used to be so physically active. You know what I mean?
And if you think about it, 10 pounds isn't much.
It's
you
not.
Know what I mean? It really, I'm like, I can think of some things that I've picked up at like Costco and stuff that are for sure over 10 pounds.
And things that you don't even think about, something that you
yeah.
just pick up on a regular basis that you don't even think about, like little Bruno and Lucky Butt.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wouldn't even think about it because you're just so used to picking them up and like rubbing their belly, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yep.
So true.
Flynn is 40 pounds, and I just had to pick him up yesterday and throw him in a bath. So that would be a nope.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you wouldn't even think about it normally.
Yeah, exactly. And, I had a very minor surgery in comparison. I had my umbilical hernia fixed, and it was the same thing. I wasn't supposed to lift anything. And Jackson was, not little, but he was still fairly little, where like, he runs up to you and you're like, okay, pick him up. And I literally had to be like, no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know. It's mainly Cody. When Cody's home, it's mainly him following me around. You shouldn't be doing that. You can't be doing that. Can't do that.
Oh my God. I would have.
Thank you, annoying shadow.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I would do things like I would get very, very creative. Okay, if I can't do this, let me do that. And so I'd get very like, I can totally do this from bed. Cody would give me the look, 20 times a day. Like, you can't do that.
So basically, you're just trying to bargain. You're like, but I want to do something that's close to that. Can I do something similar?
Yes. Yeah. So yes, please. And so growing up, my favorite show was I Love Lucy. Did you ever watch I Love Lucy?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I introduced Cody to the show, he didn't grow up, he knew I Love Lucy, but he didn't watch it like I did. And so I have all the DVDs and I had him watch it. And every episode he goes, this is the why you are the way you are. Like, you're always scheming with some plan and doing something. And now that we have like technology with like our cameras and the Ring doorbell, and we have cameras in the house now and everything, he's like always catching me doing something. You know what I mean?
That sounds exactly like my husband.
You're the modern day Lucy.
Oh yeah. Sounds exactly like Tom too. Because he was watching me from our front door camera shoveling. And I was like, yeah, well, it's snowing. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
He put it up on the Instagram. He's like, look, I have a great wife. And I'm like, where is he? Oh, he's watching her through the camera like a creepo.
Yep. Yeah, that's totally him. And then he'll take really attractive photos of me folding laundry on our couch downstairs. I'm like, delete that. Thank you. Yep. Why are you doing this?
When we first got our interior cameras, I was on the sofa, I think on my laptop working, and he text messages me like he was commenting on my appearance, and I'm going to keep it G-rated. So he's just commenting on my appearance. And I was like, this is creepy. We cannot be doing this now.
Like, weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really weird. I know. I will say though, running back to, these rare, diagnoses, it's interesting because before I went through all my surgeries, I was very quiet about all my medical stuff because one, like I said before, it wasn't glamorous. Nobody wants to hear about your bowel movements, right?
Yeah.
And two, I think we were kind of raised in an atmosphere where you didn't gripe. We never victimized ourselves. And I'm not saying that people with any type of illnesses are trying to be victims. That's not what I'm saying. I think what it was perceived that you were a victim if you complained about anything, So we kind of grew up with this very, this idea of trying to be as close to perfection as you possibly could. And obviously having an irritable bowel disease is nowhere near close to perfection, right? And so I didn't talk about it. And typically, even when I did talk about it, people didn't understand it or they didn't believe me because, like I said, it's invisible illness. People it's okay, you look healthy. We don't think anything's wrong with you. And so when I went through all my surgeries, so the first surgery was an emergency surgery. So when I was taken back, I didn't have time to think about it. I asked the surgeon, I'm like, what are my options? And she goes, you don't have options. This is happening. And I was like, holy crap. And so the whole process, I didn't know what to expect, right? I had no time to do research. So when I came out of surgery, like 2 days, I was finally coherent. And that's when I started doing my research. And I was like, I saw maybe 2 blogs of other women and men that went through what I was going through at that time. And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody talks about this. And I need this information for me. There's other people that need this information for themselves as well. And that's when I decided I'm going to take my health journey public because this can help somebody. Even if it helps one person understand that their life isn't picture perfect, that they can make a perfect world out of what they have, what they're given, and the cards they're dealt. I think, and answering your last question, Rieta, that's how I stayed so positive through it was, I'm going to play the hell of these cards that I was dealt. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the end all. I'm going to make sure that I go down in a fury.
Yeah. Well, and what you said about like, we're raised in like a society where it's like, you don't want to come off as like weak or whatever, and you want to be
Yeah.
like perfect. I totally get that, because so I have it runs in our family. It's a rare blood disorder. And every time I talk about it, I'm like, it's no big deal. It's fine. Just, it's okay.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you Google it, it's terrifying.
Yeah. And it's okay. I think it's okay to talk about it. I think that people are just like, people get so put off about talking about things. So basically what I do is like, look, here's the information. If you want to know more, I'm more than happy to talk about it. This is too much. We'll stop. You know what I mean? But it is very interesting to see how people react when you start talking about these things, because a lot of people don't know how to react. And especially, I'm probably same thing with you. I'm assuming a very rare blood disorder.
Yeah, it's a blood disorder.
Yeah.
It's a genetic blood disorder that runs in our family.
Yeah, and some of us have it and some of us don't. Like I'm pretty sure I don't. I would have found out when I had Jackson if I did.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
But
what's the blood disorder?
It's called factor 5.
Yeah, and it's basically I could clot at any time. It's really just kind of like up in the air. Like you don't really know if anything will even happen until it happens, and they're not going to give you anything until you actually do present with a clot. So, and then like for me, we're going to be trying to get pregnant soon, hopefully. And like the one thing that was the most scary is that it's 10 times more likely. Well, it's not 10 times. It's not like the official stat, but it's like 2 or 3 times more likely for me to have a late stage miscarriage.
Oh.
And so I'll have to take low doses of blood thinner if I ever end up getting pregnant. But it's like yes, you have this factor 5 blood disorder, but it's kind of like mysterious almost, because they're not going to do anything like preventative. They won't give me any like blood thinners now or anything like that, because I've never had a clot.
So they won't give you any blood thinners until it happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of go on like a regimen, because I think that's what our uncle has to do now, because now he gets them frequently.
Yeah, he does now. And I remember too when like Des first was going through all this and she got her bag, like I found this random girl on Instagram who was a bodybuilder who has, I think hers is different though. I think she has a colostomy bag, because there is a difference, right, Des, between a colostomy bag and an alostomy bag?
Yeah, there is, but she had the same one.
Oh, okay. She did have the same one, but I was so excited when I found her. Like I texted Des and I'm like, oh my God, there's this girl. She's a bodybuilder. Look, she's got a bag. Look what you can do. And Des was like, oh my God.
Zoe. I still follow her.
She's awesome.
She's super awesome. She's a great role model for people that have disabilities, and she's a bodybuilder. She competes in bodybuilding. She's a fantastic role model for people with health issues that still want to live life that they normally did before, or to be able to accomplish having this life. And it's interesting because like when I had my ostomy bag, everyone's like, oh my gosh, your life is over. I'm like, no. My life has just begun. Yeah. My life just started. You know what I mean? There was like, obviously it's like kind of, there are times where it was annoying, but there's a lot of positives to having it too. So, you know, the rest of my life, there's always a chance that I will go back to being an ostomate. There's always that reality. And so I will never take that for granted. And if I have to do it, I have to do it. There's Gracie saying hi.
Gracie. My dog's saying hi too. He's on the floor underneath my feet. That's why I was kind of going underneath my desk. I was like, stop it.
Yeah. I'm surprised they've been this good so far.
They've been really good. All the animals have been good. I don't know if you guys saw, I went to the door like at one point because I could hear Jackson and I'm like, what? Like ask quietly.
Well, and then before we did the interviews, it was every single episode we'd see Jackson come in middle of the episode. We're like, hey Jackson. Rihanna was not a fan.
You could do a Jackson segment.
I know. I probably will have to. He probably love that. He wants to have his own YouTube channel, so I'm sure he would be like, yeah.
Aww.
That's the thing. All the kids want like to watch other kids on YouTube playing with toys.
So strange. But I'm like, okay. You don't want the toy yourself to play with. You want to watch another person play with it.
Right. Exactly.
No, he wants to do like video game stuff.
Yeah.
That's another popular one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So
Totally.
Connie, I feel like I've been asking all the questions. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Give me, yeah, go
No,
for
I
it.
felt like I was asking all the questions.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind then. Never mind then. I take it back.
Yeah.
Fine. Take it back.
Take it back now. Oh my gosh. hold on.
Yeah. So I do
Yeah.
have another question though. So
Yeah.
you talked about like the limitations. What are some of your limitations, and like how will you be able to like overcome them? Do you know? Don't you? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very, very complicated answer because of one, I will make this one very distinct clarification that's incredibly important that I'm really sorry that I haven't already made. With every single diagnosis that I have, and specifically PSC, since that's what we are focusing on, everybody's diagnosis and symptoms are different. So, and treatment plans are different. So what could work for me could possibly not work for the person that's diagnosed next to me. So when I like talk about everything, a lot of things I'm talking about, most people that have like an autoimmune disease or an irritable bowel disease or PSC specifically are going to nod. Yes, that's exactly what I'm experiencing. But not everybody can be treated the same way. So I do want to make that very, very clear. That's not just one shoe fixes, one size fits everybody.
Yeah.
So for limitations, because my conditions are, inflammatory, I have to be very careful with like certain foods that I eat. I have to eat like foods that are really anti-inflammatory. It's interesting, since I had my total colectomy, my rebuild, my body will tell me immediately if I'm eating something that I shouldn't be, like anything that's processed or loaded in artificial sugars or greasy or fried. My skin breaks out like with a red rash within like 5-10 minutes.
Oh,
and
that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'm just thinking of like some of the great like fried foods, although I don't eat them very often, like to just not even like your body's just like, no.
I will say that I'll splurge on certain foods that are not good for me. Probably like when I splurge on them, I have to be prepared. If you're going to do this, okay, well now you're prepared. You have to take some Benadryl and you're down for the rest of your day. So a lot of it is inflammation of my joints. So like mainly it's in like my hips and my knees and my hands. And so when I get inflamed, like it hurts to even just extend my fingers or bend my hips. It's how do I describe it? Like a rusty tool. I'm the Tin Man. That's what it feels like. What you see with the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
I was just about to say that once you were like rusty, and I was like the Tin Man.
Exactly. So that is just a minor symptom. So if I'm like in high elevation, so if I'm like on a flight or if I travel up to the mountains, that causes a flare up. And I have to be very careful with that. And so my limitations are pretty much, I can't do any strenuous activity, moderate activity. So sometimes a flight of stairs will kill me. I had to do a wheelchair at Disneyland, things like that, like things I never thought of that I would have to do before. I would say, but if I were to, like, let's say Cody and I did go to Ireland and I want to go on a hike. We're going to plan the hike for the last day before we leave. You know what I mean? We're not, so yeah. I can, you know what I mean? We just were very careful on how we plan things and how we do things in our life. But what I will say is, I think I'm incredibly lucky that I got 29 years of my life before my health really went down the drain fast, because there's kids that are born this way. And there's people that get these conditions at a very, very, in their youth. And those are the situations that break my heart, because they don't get to truly experience a childhood of the freedom of drinking from a hose when you're out playing and things like that. You know what I mean? And carelessly roller skating or riding a bike, being on a sports team. Those are things that I've been afforded that a lot of kids don't get. So I'm very, very fortunate. And I very much remind myself on a daily basis how fortunate I am that it came late to my life, even though I'm young for such major issues. Yeah. So my day-to-day has greatly been affected. In September, the company I worked for 6 years, I worked remotely, and it was amazing. So I was a fashion stylist, and I worked remotely. And so worked amazingly when I had ulcerative colitis. And then when I went through my surgeries, they were phenomenal. They worked around whatever we needed. And in September, they decided to take our position and move it to a couple different states that were a little bit more cost effective. And it was interesting because up that last year, my doctors kept asking me if I wanted to stop working to focus on my health. And they were kind of trying to push me that direction. And I wanted to, but I was scared to stop working. I didn't want to stop working. I was afraid of giving that part up of my life. And in September, when our company decided to dissolve my position in California, they made the decision for me.
Yeah.
And that's the way that's the way I see it. And so since September, we decided I was going to take 6 months off and really focus on my health, see where that leads me. And so that's where we are right now. Is my days are packed with different types of therapy, IV drips and treatments. And I'm working a lot even on psychological therapy. I have a therapist that specializes with people with chronic health issues. So there's a lot that I'm learning so that I can take this for the rest of my life and figure out how to meditate and stretch when I'm having like a flare up and things like that, instead of maybe not having to go to the emergency room. Hopefully nutritionists, dietitians, to make sure that I'm eating, the best way that I can so that I can have a healthy future.
Well, that's good though, focusing on your health and learning all that stuff.
Yeah. And I thought I was already, and I was definitely focused on it for like the last 5 years when my health got really bad. But there was always this part where it was, okay, I have to work. That I'm accountable. You know what I mean? I'm accountable for that as much as I am for my health, but my work always came first, always. And so now there's no excuses. There's nothing else that's tying me to an accountability that this is my accountability right now, is me. And so that's been really, really interesting for like the last 4 months. It's weird. And it didn't really, really start until like January, like the second week of January. That's when it really started. It just started in September. And I was just like, what do I do? What am I doing? It's weird when you give yourself the time you need. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever been in that position.
Yeah, the universe played you a card. That's what I see. It was meant to happen. You were given that time. Okay, it is your time.
I completely agree. And I told Cody, I said, if the company I work for didn't decide to do that, I would still be working. Like they forced me into that. And that is the way I see it. And that's the way I see about everything in my life. Like I've always thought that everything happens for a reason. And I've always really dug deep into figuring out what that reason is. I want to make sure I'm not just covering the surface. I want to make sure that I'm understanding what everything is happening in my life and make sure that there is a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was the same when we moved here. Like I had never not worked either, and just finding a job here, and then COVID hit, and it was just like, okay, well, I have no excuses anymore. We're going to start the podcast, and we're going to do all the things that we said we were going to do. Yeah. And here we are. And we're here sharing people's amazing stories, which is what we had always envisioned to do, is like you said, like you wanted to make your health public, and like we want to be a part of that journey to make your story known, because even if only one person hears it, that's one person that needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our culture is really really big on everybody inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels not just included, I don't like the word included, but feels appreciated and loved and worthy. And that's so important, especially like when I had my ostomy bag. I bought this really cute like lace ostomy bag holder so that I could still feel sexy. Yeah.
I love it.
And my other very good friend, Erica, made these ostomy bag covers because I was just like, why can't I make this sexy? Why can't I make this cute? Do you know what I mean? Like it's leading a life for autoimmune diseases during COVID. That's been interesting because so we're like a year into the US being exposed to COVID. And
what's today? Yeah, we're like 10 days away. It was the 13th. Friday the 13th was the last day that everybody went out. So
my liver specialist put me on mask wearing duty and quarantining 2 weeks, I think it was, before the rest of the United States did. So I was like 2 weeks ahead of you guys. So I was that weirdo walking around the grocery store with a mask on before anyone else was. And so when everyone else wore a mask, I'm like, at least I don't look like I don't look like a weirdo compared to everyone else. But it is really interesting to navigate because I have, family and friends that I don't think they know how to support me. I don't think they know that, it's difficult. A lot of our culture pre-COVID was text, social media messaging, maybe a FaceTime call. And it went from people are already a little weary and cautious about coming around me to now everybody was full blown, okay, we're not going to see Desiree. And it's really made a huge impact, and not really in a good way. It's been really difficult. We've been very cautious about, we have a very intimate family group that we see on a regular basis. We're all very in the loop with each other about where we go. If any of us think that we've been exposed, we all go into like quarantines and we all make sure that we're communicating with each other. But I miss a lot of my friends and a lot of my family. And I think that's the hardest part. I would say if like, somebody that is in my position, I've always, this, Rita, I've always preached, reach out to them, open the conversation, but reach out to them just as a friend because it gets lonely. It gets really, really lonely.
I mean, I think everybody's pretty lonely at this point. So,
Yeah.
Especially somebody like you that is even more restricted about where they go and who they're around. Like even Kyle, Kyle's in California right now and he's like, oh, I want to go visit Des, but he doesn't want to get you sick. He's worried. He's legitimately worried about it. Like it's not, he misses you, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be that person that accidentally exposes you.
Right. And I think that that's kind of what everybody's feeling. It's hard too, because then I have to have the conversation. If I hang out with somebody, I have to ask them like, how do you think, I feel like I'm the hospital when you go to a business and they're like, do you have these symptoms? I feel like I'm that person asking them. And it seems so ridiculous.
Take your temperature before you walk into my house.
One of my friends, Shauna, she bought me one of those radar thermometers as a joke. But I'm like, I should probably carry that with me. But
great.
Yeah, but I go to my doctor so often that I'm always 97.3 or 97.6. So when I go to a business that they have to take it, I'm like, I already know what it is. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, I just know.
Like, don't ask questions. It's a long story.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So, but I will say with all this stuff, I am very, very in tune with my body now. Like I can I can pinpoint exactly what organ it is. I'll get like pancreatitis. Yeah, it's a trip. Like I'll go to the emergency room, like, okay, it's pancreatitis. I'm like, well, how do you know? I'm like, I've had pancreatitis before. This is exactly where it is. I can tell them exactly what's going on. It's a trip. So it's kind of a blessing. I kind of like that instead of, because think about it. When you go to the ER and you're like, I have an upset stomach, there is a long list of things that could be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the nice thing. And I'm very, very in tune with my body now.
Well, then at least you know when something crazy might happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kenny, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. Oh, I was going to say, are you on the list for the vaccine? Have you already gotten it? Like, because I would assume that you're pretty high risk so that you'd be one of the first.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is a great question. So in California, I don't know if it is the same where you guys are, but California, it's, actually, I think it is the whole United States. Seniors first, right? 65 and up. And then after that, then it's high risk patients. So the great thing is my specialty doctors are all within UCI. And so we have this patient portal and I emailed all of them like, hey, can you guys all talk to each other and tell me if you guys all think I should get the vaccine or not?
That is awesome.
Sure, yeah. And I thought for sure that they were all going to be like, no. And they're all like, yes. So I was like, very well, looks like I'm in the vaccine. So I'm going to be in that next group whenever that's approved, which hopefully should be soon.
Husband was in the military. If you could have gotten it like sooner because he's special or whatever,
consideration. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. No, he does. Well,
these words are today. It's fine.
Right. I know. Well, it's funny because it's funny that you say words are hard because one of my conditions, I get really bad brain fog. So there's sometimes where I'm in a conversation with someone, I just sit there for like a solid 15 seconds trying to think of one word. I'm like,
what is that word that I'm thinking of? Oh.
Just hang with me. Hang with me.
And that person's like,
just starts throwing out words.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. Cause I have friends that will their like communication skills is to like finish the sentence. And so I'm like, no, I'm not done. Like, I'm working on it.
You're like, hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Just wait with me. Bear with me. Most people that I hang out with on a regular basis, they kind of know what my symptoms are for the most part. So they're like, okay, I get it. You know, she's a little slow right now.
Need the poster that says like still loading or whatever.
Oh my gosh. I want to get a shirt when I get my liver transplant. And I kind of want one now for my ostomy surgeries of like the recycle logo, because they recycled part of my small intestine and made it into 3 new parts. And then when I get the new liver, I want to get the recycled sign for the liver, maybe even a tattoo. I don't even know. But I think it's really, really cool to think that we can reuse different body parts or different body parts from different people. Like, it's just so crazy. You know what I mean?
It is.
Yeah.
I didn't even think when you were first talked about the surgeries, I was like, how are you still alive?
Yeah.
until you said, I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing that she could do.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I didn't either. Like, even like I said, when I went to the surgery, I had a lot of shock, right? Like the surgeon, she held up like a piece of paper, like my medical stuff. And she was like, so this is what we're going to do. And she drew it out for me. And I still didn't understand what she was saying. I still wasn't absorbing it. And so Cody goes, they're going to take out your large intestine. And I was like, how does that work? Like, I don't get it. Yeah. And so I was like, and so when I looked to Cody for confidence and he had the confidence, I said, okay, let's do this, you know? And
there you go.
Came out of my surgery and woke up. Mm-hmm. I was so packed tightly with blankets because they wanted to make sure I wasn't going to like move around and like rip off my ostomy bag. Right. God. Yeah. And I had so many incisions. I was so infected. They had a pack. And the incision, I think, was like 6 to 9 inches long, like a hysterectomy incision. Yeah. And they had to pack that. And I didn't know that they had it packed. And so when they came in like a couple days later, like, okay, we have to unpack your incision. I'm like, no idea what you're talking about. I haven't moved in 48 hours. And so she like pulls my gown up and the blankets off. And she's like, we got to take this cotton out. I'm like, didn't even know that was there. Like, I had no idea.
Cool. You're like, thanks for updating me.
Yeah, it was so weird. And even, so they have, so the ostomy bag, they have a nurse specifically that's trained to help ostomy patients, right? And they told us that before they discharged me from the hospital, that they were going to test me to make sure that I can tend to my ostomy bag alone before they discharged me from the hospital. And I was like panicking, like I was taking SATs. Like, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. And I'm like, Cody, please do research. And I slept most of that hospital stay. I was loaded on painkillers. Yeah. And so I tell Cody, I'm like, please read, please Google this, please Google this. He goes, we're good. And I'm like, I hadn't seen him read a single thing. And then when it came to, Cody was like, got this. And he knew exactly what to do. He was like taking off my bag, doing this, it's like a 15-step procedure. And he knew every single little thing to do. I'm like, when did you learn this? He goes, while you were sleeping. I told you. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so impressed and blown away. So
he's the sweetest.
He is so the sweetest. Yeah, most people would have run away, crying away from me. He stuck around.
So there's this cartoon. I don't know if you guys follow it on Instagram. It's called The Awkward Yeti. And they always show these really funny comics of like brain and heart arguing with each other and like tongue and heart, like, and they're really funny. And there's a character called Irritable Bowel, and you can buy a plushie of him. And I literally like went to Kyle one day and I'm like, if I send Desiree Irritable Bowel, do you think she'll be offended or will it be funny? And he was like, no, do it. And I was like, are you sure? I don't know.
I don't know if it's the same one, but my aunt wanted to get me one that was, you might be talking about the same thing. It looked like the large intestine, like a pink large intestine, and it was a pillow. Is that what you're talking about?
It's not a pillow. It's like, you know, like kids call little stuffed toys plushies. It's like a
plushie. Yes. No, I would not be offended. I would think that would be really funny. She wanted to give me the same.
I'm gonna send it to you then.
Oh yeah. It's
then you ruined the surprise. You should have just sent it.
That's all right. I already sent her the unicorn fart book about what she was going through, and that was a surprise. So
no, those are great little treats, and I think they're really funny. Like we were talking about before, you have to have a sense of humor about all of it. But Connie, you asked a question, or Randy, you asked a question. I'm trying to think what it was. I think I got derailed, but that's pretty much how I tell stories. I get very derailed.
That's pretty much our whole podcast, so it's fine.
Pretty much. And that's why I
Um,
edit things. You edit
Mhm.
out like the random and you're like, okay, this can go.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Desiree went on a tangent, so we're just gonna cut out these last 20
No.
minutes.
No, she's mainly talking about me. She'll probably just like
No.
cut about like a bunch of stuff out from that I say because I definitely do the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
my
my
goodness.
gosh.
See,
It's so
people
funny.
want to hear from you. They just don't want. They don't want to hear from me. They want to hear your story.
Well, hopefully my voice wasn't too annoying. I can't stand hearing my voice, so hopefully
Oh,
it
same.
goes.
That's why it's really weird.
Nobody
Like I
can.
decided to do this thing where it's just my voice, and I hate my voice.
Well, I didn't think it was going to be an issue until I was sent the podcast episodes, and I was like, "Well, this is bizarre."
Oh my god!
Like, because I've
There's-
never really just like listened to myself speak. I'm like, this is weird. I'm not listening to this.
There was actually a guy
Seriously.
though that was talking about it in one of the podcast group, and he was talking about how like you sound different to yourself because like you actually hear like the vibrations. Like I don't remember, he used some fancy term,
Mhm.
something about the way you vibrate in your. So you actually sound completely different to yourself than you do
Mm-hmm.
to other people.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, and it terrifies me. I'm like, what? That is not how I sound.
Well, and I think
Ugh.
that the theory is your voice is deeper than what you hear,
Yes.
which is funny because I feel like I sound like a man sometimes from inside my head when I'm talking. But when I hear my voice, I'm like, that sounds kind of annoying, like high pitched.
I think that all the time when I look and talk and see myself.
Anyway, Connie, do you have any more questions before we roll this up and we get totally derailed?
But I was having fun. No.
I know you were.
How about you,
Killjoy.
Rietta?
Asked the sex question, but I was like, I don't want to make that seem like it's important and that's really personal, and I don't know how Cody would feel, so I left that one alone.
But it is important. It is really important, and it's interesting because I think everyone's sexual journey is different depending on their personal experiences. I'll say that it's tricky. It is really tricky because, especially with him being in the military, the timing of him being home and me feeling not just good but feeling great and feeling healthy and not going through one of my treatments and then feeling the sexual desire, you know what I mean, on top of all of that. And it's really hard to get all of those things at the exact same time. Oh, and then we're both home at the same time, right? And then we both
Yeah,
have the time to
basically
do
the
it.
universe has to collide and make the perfect day.
Yes.
And
And
that's difficult.
yes, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There is a lot of difficulties with it. There's a lot, but I'm working on it. I work on it and I work on it. And Cody is just such a stud. He's always willing. He's like, well, I'm happy to help whenever you're ready. Like,
Of
Sounds
course
like
he
all
is.
guys ever.
yeah, and he's really sweet about it too, because I do love scars. I think scars are an amazing storyteller, and I'm not ashamed of my scars. I have a ton around my whole abdomen and right above like between my pelvic, like my hips, and I'm not ashamed of them, but sometimes it makes it difficult to feel sexy. He does a really, really good job of making sure that they're still sexy. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And I think that, I think that's really important.
I mean, you just think
Okay.
about a marriage and, sex is a very normal part of marriage. Like, I know a lot of people don't talk about it, but
yeah.
it is. It's very important. And, it is
Mhm.
important in a way. So, and of course, you want Cody to be happy. You guys both want to be happy. You're attractive to each other. You love each other. That's one of the ways you express it. So, I mean, it's hard. It has to be hard anyway when it's a struggle.
Absolutely. What I will say is, when ladies and gentlemen and whoever in between, when you're picking your partner in life, make sure that they're not just there for the physical or for the laughter or for your brain. You make sure that that person has everything and that person is willing to give themselves to you, because you might end up in a situation. We had no idea that this would be our lives. Like, our 10-year anniversary is at the end of this year. So we were married, I think 6 years, when all this happened. We knew I had ulcerative colitis, but we thought that was the extent of it. And I had no idea what else could happen from that. So just when you pick your partner, you take your time and you be patient and you find someone that loves you for who you are completely. Because when you get these trials in life, you're going to want someone that's going to stick with you through thick and thin. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of thin. When you say your marriage vows, through sickness and health. Cody and I have often talked about this. You don't think that's going to be applied so soon into your marriage. You know what I mean? And it can happen, So pick your partner wisely and take your time with that, and make sure it's somebody that appreciates you for your entire you. You know what I mean?
So can we have a 10-year anniversary party?
Yes, we can. Actually, it's funny because Cody, oh my gosh, he planned a 5-year anniversary party, like a huge one. And then I had all my surgeries. So we had been married 5 years, now that I think about it. And so he like messaged everyone, was like, sorry, we're going to pump the brakes for that. Yes, 10 years, I definitely went through something.
This is how to deal when shit gets real. You've heard from the lovely Desiree. Hit us up on all of our social medias. We're now on YouTube. Email us if you want to be a guest. And have a great day.